line with us.
Thank you.
Okay, well, it's 5 minutes past 9:30. I don't see Britt yet. Jackie, do you want to run the meeting or do you want me to?
Why don't you? Because I get calls and stuff. So
Okay. Okay, hold on one second. Pull up the agenda. Okay, so I think the first order of business is just receive and file the minutes from the last meeting. And yeah, so we'll go ahead and do that. And then we have an update from Pat on seniors experiencing homelessness in SPA 8. Courtney?
All right. Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. Happy 2024. Yes, I know it's January 23rd, but I haven't seen y'all, so I'm still saying it. I'm Courtney Reed. I work for PATH. We're People Assisting the Homeless. And I'm here to give an update on our work with our seniors last year for the year of 2023. I'm not sure if you all know, but PATH is no longer going to be holding the contract for the South Bay COG, Council of Governments. And so this probably will be one of the last meetings that we are attending and presenting. You can always feel free to invite us back if you want to for other stuff, but as far as this update, it's going to be no longer. So in the year 2023, we served 40 seniors. We served 27 in Supervisorial District 2. And SD4, we served 13 seniors. Of those, 17 were permanently housed, whether that was through permanent supportive housing services. 9 were linked to other types of housing service, whether it be TLS, which is time limited subsidy, and 2 were linked to substance abuse resources. We would like for considerations to be like, what our ask would be is, of course, more affordable housing for seniors, and more prevention focused on seniors. We do have a prevention program, so you can still feel free to refer people who may receive a 3-day notice to us. And I'll put my email address in the chat. But those are the challenges that we have with people who are older. They have fixed incomes, and like if a spouse passes away or something happens, they're at risk. And so we get a lot of referrals through our prevention program for seniors. And so, to the powers that be, affordable housing for seniors and prevention should be the focus on seniors. So that is the update that we have. Again, I put my information in the chat. And if you all have any questions, I'm available for questions right now.
Hey, Courtney. So after the engagement's over, if we still have prevention cases, is that something we can still refer your way?
Yes, absolutely. We still have our prevention team. And so right now we are in January. We're not overspent. A lot of other spas get overspent. Sometimes we get referrals of people in prevention and they're already, $15,000 in rental arrears and things like that, very high numbers. And so, but we are still, we keep track of our budget to make sure we don't overspend, because we did overspend last year because we have so many referrals. And so right now we still have capacity. So feel free, if someone gets a 3-day notice or is facing eviction, you can start with an email to me. And then I'll forward it to my prevention program manager. And we'll start off with the problem solving conversation and try to go from there to screen folks to make sure they qualify.
Great. Lori?
Lori?
Yeah, hi, Courtney.
Hi.
Do you help people who, seniors who their rent has been raised, they know they're not going to be able to afford it, they haven't received an eviction notice, but they're concerned that they are going to because they can't afford it? Do you help them that early, or do we only contact you after they've already received an eviction notice?
Yeah, they would need to have it wouldn't have to be an eviction notice, but a 3-day notice. The 3-day notice will help them qualify, and then we can start to, help them from there. But yeah, they would need to have the 3-day notice first.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Yes, Captain Hetzer.
I think they can, if they're seniors, the 62 and over, they can refer to Home Safe, to Adult Protective Services for the prevention piece to see if there's space in the programs. Since they have the 3 new service providers, they should possibly could get some assistance that way, Lori. Rather than, wait for the notice to come. If they're rent burdened more than the 30%, they're not buying their food or medications and they're struggling. That's APS, the Home Safe program. So there's an online form that they can fill out and then go through to access that program.
Thank you.
And Courtney, remind me, the prevention stuff, that's just for adults, right? Not for families?
There is prevention for families, but we don't cover that and PATH is not in charge of that in Spot 8. That would be Harbor Interfaith. They cover families for Spot 8.
Okay, great. And just to let everyone know, Courtney, you'll be missed. Thanks for coming on for over 2 years now on the Senior Services Working Group.
It's been since 2018.
Oh wow. Okay.
Before you, Ronson, before you.
Yeah.
When they were in person.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, you will be missed, and but we know where to find you. And so we'll bring you back if we have any questions on homelessness, and since you're our resident expert on the topic. But yeah, best wishes, and keep killing it out there, getting people housed. And if people don't know, Courtney is actually in charge of one of the locations for the county's Pathway Home project. So she's been very busy with that, and yeah, it's been very successful so far, right, Courtney?
Yeah, it's been good. It's been really a huge learning opportunity. It's rewarding, it's challenging. But the main thing is, seeing people get off the streets, transitioning from the streets to inside and preparing them to, get into their permanent housing. So it's so far we've had about 17 to 19 people from the encampment secure housing. So it's been good. It's a lot of work though.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Courtney, again. So moving on, I just want to tee up our first meeting of the year just by saying, one of the things we left 2023 in our last meeting was that we really wanted to do like a project this year with the Senior Services Working Group. We feel like we have a great bunch of folks here, and we think we can make a difference in kind of tackling on a project. And one of the things that was mentioned was the idea of senior isolation. And we saw that being very acute during the pandemic, and the problem hasn't really gone away. And so our next group of speakers will be addressing this issue, and hopefully through these engagements, we can kind of figure out kind of the role that we can play as a Senior Services Working Group to and engage our cities in tackling the issue of the isolation that some of our seniors feel. So our next speaker, Kathy, do you want to introduce our next speaker since you've been engaged with her?
I can try. I'm not sure I have the correct enunciation right, but Dr. Fakardi is from Adult Protective Services. She is the psychiatrist in charge of it all, and she's the be-all, know-all as far as I'm concerned with Adult Protective Services and knowing how to engage with them. So with that, I can help turn it back to her for her presentation, and hopefully I know we're going to learn a lot from it.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hetzer, for inviting me. So I have to do some correction. I'm from Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health. I think you reached out to our colleagues at APS.
I did.
And then they introduced me because we do a lot of work with them. So I'm from Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health. And I am not a psychiatrist. I'm a psychologist. And I appreciate the opportunity. Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Haide Fakhrabadi, clinical psychologist with Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health. And hi, Ms. Maureen Feldman. It's a pleasure and honor to kind of co-present with you. You're an expert in the field, and it's a true honor. And I'm going to be talking very general about social isolation. At Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health, we care for the well-being of our residents. So we have an array of mental health services. And one thing is very imperative, it's providing education to our community. As you all know, stigma related to mental health is very high. And many times people do not seek mental health services, or if they're in services, they may prematurely stop their engagement with treatment. And we know that if individual has mental health issues and if they're not getting treatment, the condition will get worse and worse. Therefore, we go all over LA County and we provide education on signs and symptoms of mental health related to depression and anxiety. We talk about how social isolation can impact our physical health and also mental health. As a matter of fact, this social isolation presentation that I'm going to present, we developed this, I think, about 6 or 7 years ago or more, because as you all remember, prior to the pandemic, I remember sitting in any of the older adult meetings, we talked about social isolation, how it's impacting individuals. As a matter of fact, it is not only in the United States, globally, social isolation and loneliness is impacting adults and, of course, our older adults, because they may be more vulnerable. As we get older, the chances of us living alone increases for a variety of reasons. I'm going to very briefly talk about it. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And please, if you find this presentation helpful, please let me know. We go all over LA County. As you all know, LA County is large, over 4,000 square miles. About 10 million individuals live in our LA County. I've been to almost all the 88 cities of LA County except Catalina Island. And you never know. I think you guys are close in Catalina Island. So if you need a presenter, let me know. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but at Department of Mental Health, we support our community. So I've been going to a lot of senior centers, senior housing, faith-based organization, variety of, partnership we have with variety of organization in our community. So let us know. We will support and present. And at the end, if I have time, I can talk about other topics that we present on. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead, turn off my camera and share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Yes, thank you. So the information, as I mentioned, is very brief, very general. When I go out in the community, I always encourage our older adults to consider safety number one. When I do presentation, I don't want people to be uncomfortable. So I always let them know that their safety is number one and kind of model it and let them know that no matter where we are, if we do not feel safe, we have any health issues, please immediately follow with your primary care provider and don't make any changes based on my presentation. Always consult with your primary care provider. Briefly, I'm going to talk about social isolation and loneliness. And as you all know, there are two different definitions for social isolation and loneliness, but many times the terms are used interchangeably. What does isolation look like? What contributes to isolation? What are the effects on mental health, physical health, and how to manage isolation? So basically, social isolation is an objective measure. The individual can tell us, or we can see how many people is visiting this individual. And usually the individual has very small contact with others. Sometimes it's only Meals on Wheels that is visiting them, or maybe their caregiver. But when it comes to loneliness, it's that subjective experience of individual. They may be living with other individuals. They may have some visitors, but individual reports that they don't feel that connection. Social isolation, there are a variety of articles out there about social isolation and loneliness. And in May 2023, our Surgeon General talked about the epidemic of loneliness and isolation, and also talking about the impact on our physical health and also mental health. And they give 6 foundation pillars for managing this, or strategies for combating isolation and loneliness. Sometimes from the body language of individual, perhaps we can find out some information. Usually individual who's isolated may have withdrawn demeanor, tightly crossed arms and legs. When I get to this point, I always say that that doesn't mean that if I'm, crossing my arms and legs, meaning that I'm isolated. But there are some behavioral clues and cues that we can pick up. Lack of interest in personal care and appearance. Individual may say, what's the point? I'm not going out. No one is visiting me. What's the point of caring for my appearance? Individual may not attend events. And if they are invited, they may cancel, not returning calls, and rarely leaving their room. Before I start, I want to mention that, majority of our older adults have a productive life, that they're engaging with others. And, but on the other side, we have many of our vulnerable older adults that may have chronic health issues, mobility problems, and very limited support system that they need more help and support. So what contributes to social isolation? It is not one single factor that I can say, oh, this is contributing to social isolation and let's go and do something about it. It's multi-factor that is impacting isolation. We know that mental health issues such as depression can contribute to social isolation. Loss is one of the, unfortunately, risk factors as aging. As we age, we experience more losses of friends, family, spouse, our support system, and that can impact individual. Lack of mobility. I remember many years ago, I was doing a presentation at a senior housing, and this lady mentioned to me that she's doing a hip surgery. And she said, you know what? Just thinking about that hip surgery not being able to drive, it's really impacting me because it means that affects my independence. I have to rely on other people. And she said, I have lots of family members that they're very supportive, but just knowing that I cannot go to my senior centers anytime I want. And she also said, knowing that I cannot go to my favorite grocery store and buy the items that I love is just really affecting me. So it's not only not being able to drive or have mobility issue. How about the consequences of that? If I have doctor's appointment and I have special engagement, going and, being around my friends, that will limit that. And as we all know, over 90% of individuals as they age may have at least one chronic health issues, such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease, arthritis, and 77% or more, they may have 2 or more of these chronic health issues that they may impact individuals and put them at a more vulnerable position. Also, loss of vision and hearing and all of our senses in general may change as we age. So there are a lot of studies talking about, 1 in 3 older adults may have one vision reducing disease as they get older, 65 years and older. Also, our hearing study shows that it may be impacted as we get older. And we know that when people are impacted, their hearing is impacted, their vision is impacted, it's very isolating and maybe a contributing factor that they're not engaging with their community or with their friends in general. And another one is retirement and loss of income. I always tell people it's wonderful, to retire. We put money aside and we look forward to retirement. When we're invited to a retirement party, We always envision ourselves to retire because we're thinking we're going to do whatever we want. I have all the time. But many times we hear that. Don't take me wrong again. There is large number of our older adults that they're retired, that they're enjoying their life, and they don't have as much stressors, and they're able to maintain their level of functioning and living styles. But on the other side, we have many of our older adults. They're impacted by the loss of income. They're impacted by not being around other individuals. As when we work, our coworkers are our social network of support. If something happens, I can talk to my coworker, hey, by the way, I received this text or this email or this letter came to my home, or this person keep calling me about this home improvement or IRS calling me and all of that. And my coworker may say, you know what, this is a scam. It's a new scam. But if I'm isolated and living alone, I don't have connection to that network. Unfortunately, we see that our older adults are more and more impacted by these scams. Don't take me wrong. These scammers are, targeting all age groups, but more of our older adults being impacted and loss of money, and there's impacting their maybe their rent, impacting their medication, their livelihood, engaging with others. So with isolation comes many more vulnerabilities, putting people at more risk of being abused and neglected. And also study shows that when people are isolated, the chances of them utilizing substances such as alcohol increases. And I just mentioned that as we get older, we have more chronic health issues. And we may be taking medication, and even small amounts of alcohol can interfere that and put me at more vulnerability. And also increases the risk of falling, right? As we get older, increases our chances of falling. Now we're adding substances and it becomes more vulnerable. Low self-esteem, the way we feel about ourselves and our abilities can be a contributing factor to our isolation. I remember many years ago, this lady mentioned, she said, I am part of a group and we meet once a month. We dress up, we get ready, we go to this nice restaurant with my group of friends for many years. And she said, you know what? I can't afford to join these luncheon with my friends, although I truly enjoy it, but I cannot afford it. And she said, I don't want to tell my friends I'm not coming to these luncheon because I cannot afford these luncheons. And then she said, of course, if I tell my friends, they will pay for my lunch, but I don't want that. So we know that how this may be impacting of individual not engaging, and many more can be impactful. And I'm going to pause and see if anyone has any questions, or if you want to add more, what contributes to social isolation, because I can go on and talk about it. So anything else, if anyone wants to add to that. All right, if not, I can go on with my presentation. All right, so I talked about depression can be a contributing factor to isolation and vice versa. We know that one of the signs and symptoms of depression is people withdraw, they're more isolated. And depression as a disorder can interfere with individuals' functioning. If it's their work, impacts their work. If I'm going to school, it will impact my academic functioning. If I'm going to a senior center, engaging with others, my relationship. So it's significantly impacting people's functioning in general. And it's highly related to isolation. And I have listed some of the signs and symptoms of depression. One of the markers of depression is intense feelings of sadness, loss of interest, helplessness and hopelessness, withdrawing from other individuals, crying more than usual, negative thinking, experiencing guilt, maybe restlessness. Our sleep and our appetite is changing. Sometimes we sleep more than usual. Sometimes sleep less than usual. And many times people report, they say, I'm not sleeping. I don't have the energy and motivation to get out of bed. I'm just tossing and turning, and I'm consumed with a lot of negative thinking. And we know that depression can impact our concentration, can impact our memory. And also, I want to mention that social isolation can impact individuals' cognitive function. So older adults who are isolated, there are increased risk of neurocognitive disorders such as dementia. Going back to depression, also individual may have thoughts of death and dying. In the United States in 2021, 48,183 individuals died by suicide. Another public health issue. Out of that 48,183, 9,652 were older adult age 65 years and older. And we know that based on the data that is presented by CDC, when we break it down, our older adults have higher rate per 100,000 suicide compared to other age group as they get older. And it's not only in the United States. As a matter of fact, data globally shows that individuals 70 years and older have the higher rate of suicide all around the world. Annually, as World Health Organization report, over 700,000 individuals die by suicide. And I have to tell you, even one death is a tragedy. And so if we know that isolation increases the risk. For example, if an older adult attempts suicide, 1 in 5 will die by that attempt. When we compare it to other age group, we see that in some age group, 1 in 25 may die. Why is it that our older adult more vulnerable? Because of those maybe chronic health issues. And if they're isolated, if they don't have anyone visiting them, if they attempt, the chances of them being rescued is lower. Careful planning, maybe access to means. So that's why, and also we know that up to 90% of people who die by suicide have some form of mental health issues. Up to 60% of that is depression. And when we know that isolation and depression can go hand in hand, it's imperative to do something about it and manage that isolation and loneliness. And there are more, and also I just want to give you the provisional data reported by CDC. Death by suicide in the United States has increased by 2.6%. The provisional data is about 49,449. So it's really serious, and we want to make sure that we engage with our community, let them know that this isolation can impact their mental health, can impact their physical health, and also the risk of, being abused, neglected, increased use of substances, and also other contributing factor to it. So emptiness can be a contributing factor to isolation. Many times people say, you know what, my children have grown, they have their own family, I'm feeling lonely, or if they have lost a spouse or a partner, or also they may have moved away. That move and change can impact us as well too. Retirement, we talked about it. Housing. I remember many years ago, I was working with this gentleman. He was unhoused for many years. He got a beautiful apartment. And then I never forget, he mentioned to me, he says, you know what, don't take me wrong. I love my new apartment. And I truly appreciate it. But he said, you know what, sometimes it takes me 5 hours to get back to the neighborhood I used to be. He says, I don't drive. I take the bus, I walk, sometimes I take my bike. He said, do you know why I do that 5 hours trip to go back to the community that I used to be? He said, because over there, I recognize people and people recognize me. So that's imperative. That's why social connectedness is important. That's why Surgeon General, one of the pillars was cultivating the culture of connectedness is important. And also we know that in LA County is such a diverse county. people from all over the world live here. And sometimes people immigrated here and they said goodbye to their neighbors, their support system. They promised their family that we're going to get together and live together, but that never happened. That's why we have some of our older adults here in LA County that they don't have any support system around them. So we talked about self-esteem, the impact on mental health, increased depression, anxiety, having difficulty coping with stressors. We know the impact on physical health. Even Surgeon General talks about it. Increase the rate of suffering from cardiovascular disease, increased risk of stroke, increased risk of developing dementia, and also increased risk of premature death. People who are isolated suffer more from these chronic health issues. And also study shows that loneliness about twice as dangerous as obesity and similar to smoking, I think 12 to 14 cigarettes a day. So loneliness can be contagious. It's not like we want to stay away from people who are lonely. We want to engage with individuals. And I always encourage our community. Says, you know what, if you know someone who's isolated, just pick up the phone and call them. If it's in the same senior housing, invite them to have a cup of coffee at the community room. Include people. How to manage isolation? Be around people. Join a group and attend events. Create opportunity for our older adults to engage. Yes, it's a wonderful program at this senior center, but if I don't have transportation, how am I going to get to that wonderful program? Give back to the future generation. I've been doing these presentations for many, many years, and people in the community have shared their experiences with me. I remember one gentleman mentioned to me, he says, you know what? I used to be a mechanic for 40, 50 years, and I was a great mechanic. Look at me, I'm retired, I'm not doing anything. And I was thinking, wow, what a wealth of knowledge and experience. He should be mentoring someone, right? So volunteering, mentoring someone, and we know that there are a lot of literature and research talk about volunteering, how it can impact people's physical health and mental health. And I have to tell you, when people are volunteering and I ask them, how do you feel after volunteering? Many of them report, wonderful. I feel great volunteering and engaging with others. Internet, as you all know, has opened up many, many doors for individuals, especially during the pandemic. I remember prior to pandemic, I always mentioned to people, don't watch a lot of television because it's an isolating experience and, thing to do. But I have to tell you, I personally watch a lot of television, right? Because of the nature of that pandemic, right? We know that many individuals, maybe prior to pandemic, did not have access to internet or did not know how to use these platforms, but they started engaging. I was running several presentations. I remember one specific church that I used to go in person, and then right after pandemic, I think it was in June of 2020, if I'm not mistaken, because in March 2020, the pandemic, it was announced that it was a pandemic, coronavirus, COVID-19. I remember a few months after, I was connected by the church, and they said, you know what? We have few of our members, they're logging in Zoom, and we want to invite you to come back. We really miss those presentations. I said, absolutely. I presented virtual. I remember at the beginning, we had few, but I have to tell you, after several months, our older adults were helping their friends to get connected and join. But I always say that internet is wonderful, Facebook, Instagram, video calling, pen pal, all of that. But please make sure that you're safe, because we know that a lot of scammers are out there and put individuals more vulnerability and not give any information. As a matter of fact, we have another presentation that we talk about scams, and it's very interactive presentation, and people share some of their struggle with that as well. All right.
Dr. Dr. Body, am I saying
But
that?
yes.
Sorry about that. Just wanted to do a time check. We have about 5 minutes left, and
Absolutely.
this is terrific so far. So far, I have like in terms of helping people deal with it, getting seniors to volunteer, get people to events, technology access, and so yeah, if you can maybe just like summarize a few more things.
Actually, this was that, and then thank you so much. It's not easy for a person who's isolated. Okay, I'm going to set the goal and I'm going to go out there and interact. When we're helping individual, even ourselves, when we're setting goals, absolutely go and set big goals for yourself. But it's imperative to break that goal to smaller parts, right? And write them down. Make our goals specific if it's for social interaction. Maybe I say, you know what? I'm going to reach out to a friend I haven't heard for a few months. I'm going to make 2 phone calls today. I'm going to go once a week to the senior center, right? So set goals for yourself. And anytime you reach that goal, reward yourself so we can get the energy so we can continue that. So tips to remember, reach out for help, join a group, spend time as much with others as possible, use creative ways to stay connected, maybe share a meal, volunteer, get to know your neighbors, and also participate. And I'm going to be talking about the 6 foundation pillars that our Surgeon General talked about. Of course, strengthening the social infrastructure for our older adults. For example, if we're saying go to the libraries and parks, so we should have, and all that areas, and people could have access to it. Have public policies that is pro-connection. Telemedicine is wonderful, has helped connect many people, but we need to create a balance on that as well, and reframing maybe from that digital environment and try to increase that face-to-face. So at the beginning, I said, check with your healthcare providers. So we want to make sure that healthcare providers doing a good job of screening and connecting individuals. For example, if they're isolated, if they have mental health issues, that's imperative as well. And of course, deepening our knowledge and education to our community. At the end, and I promise you, I'm not going to click anymore. This is my last slide. Again, it was a pleasure and honor to have this opportunity here at Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health. We have an array of mental health services. We have a 24 hours, 7 days a week telephone helpline, 1-800-854-7771. It's for LA County. Anyone can call. If you press 1, you can give your zip code. They can give you all the clinic in your area. And it's 24/7. Our emotional support lines. If you know someone is isolated, emotional support line can help. From 10:30 a.m. until 9 p.m., 7 days a week, multiple languages. If someone is veteran, they can press option 3. We have some resources for them. I encourage everyone to please visit our website, dmh.lacounty.gov/resources, and also 988 Suicide and Crisis Line. In July of 2022, it was rolled out just like 911 when someone has physical health issues. We call 911 for mental health crisis, substance use crisis, suicide, maybe ideation or concern. We can call 988 24/7 confidential line. But if it's imminent danger, please call 911. 211 is LA County information line, 24/7, multiple languages. And we don't want anyone to get abused or neglected. No child, no adult, no dependent adult, and no older adult. If at any time you think or suspecting an older adult or dependent adult being abused or neglected, please call 877-477-3646 and report it. They will do an investigation. If it rises to a level, they get help for individual who's the victim of abuse or neglect. And one of our programs at LA County Department of Mental Health is our Genesis program. It's for older adult age 60 years and older. It's 100% field-based. we have licensed clinical social worker, we have a case manager, we have a registered nurse mental health, and a psychiatrist. They work as a team. You can call 213-351-7284 and ask for the eligibility criteria, or if you want to make a referral. But that said, again, thank you so much for the opportunity.
I'd like to say something regarding
Yes.
what you just said.
Absolutely.
I remember years ago, well, what you're teaching is so wonderful, and what you going to the senior centers and sharing it with I'm a senior, and going to the senior centers and talking to the seniors is one thing, and it's a great thing, but I think that the greater amount of people who need to hear this are the younger people who don't understand. They have not a clue. I mean, even if a doctor told them that their mother had dementia, they'll say, nothing wrong with mom, she's fine, because they don't want to accept that or hear it. And to them, she's just normal. She just forgets a little bit. So I remember some years back, AAA put on a commercial for about a year, and it was teaching people, because it taught me how to drive on your highways and streets and roadways with the big semi trucks, how long it took them to stop, how not to get in front, what would happen if you did all that. And we need some teaching out there, and I wouldn't know how to go about it, but we need to think about it, pray about it, getting teaching on even TV commercials, so that, and run it for a long time, so that younger people, even people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s can understand that you need to spend time with your parents or your family. You need to give of yourself. It's not all about you working and your enjoyment and you because they won't be here one day, and then you'll be sorry. And if you keep living, you're going to get there. So we need to get some teaching out, so that the younger generation can get a feeling for this and really understand it.
Yeah, I truly appreciate Ms. Brown for you mentioning that. I have to tell you, I do a lot of this presentation. I remember last year I did a presentation for individuals who are caregivers for another individual who has neurocognitive disorders such as dementia. And I remember this lady, she mentioned she said, you know what, it's very isolating, and people are not including and not understanding this. And we know about all this. Let's educate other people. You're absolutely right. Everyone needs to be educated on that part. Thank you.
Lori?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, and thank you, Diane, for a really good comment. So as a fairly recently retired senior, who basically lives alone, I can relate to a lot of things. When somebody, and I have a history of actually chronic isolation. People think I'm very gregarious and outgoing, but I do isolate. So it's very difficult to just reach out when you get depressed or you're isolating. It's not that easy to just, so I'm trying to keep some commitments to force me out there. I'm lucky I have a daughter who calls me almost every afternoon just to make sure I'm still around. But a couple of tips. First of all, I'll tell seniors, don't watch the news ever. Don't turn on the news. And I'm serious about that, because it really messes with me. But I just want people to understand, it's just not that all these suggestions are wonderful, but to put in practice, if somebody is depressed or isolating, it's extremely difficult. That phone weighs a lot. And I have already found in retirement, there's days I'm like, I don't have to get out of bed today and nobody will know. Okay, that's honest. And I have to find a reason to push myself. And so I can relate to everything you're saying. And I'm just thinking that what Diane said was probably one of the most key things here, because I'm lucky that I have a daughter who's concerned. But some people don't have a family member or a friend who will check in on them. And, how do we find those people, who are not reaching out? So I'm just kind of, I don't have an answer. I'm just kind of throwing out a few random comments that listening to the presentation. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. I truly appreciate that. In general, I'm going to speak, when we're depressed, inactivity, we don't want to do anything. That's why we need to do something to counter that. And it's very difficult. That's why I said we need to set a goal, and we need to have someone. And it's wonderful to have supportive, caring people around us. But not everyone has that supportive people around them. That's why many people, when we ask them, how do you deal with adversity in life? How do you manage it? They say, friends, family, neighbors, social worker, mental health provider, my doctor, my religious leader, my faith, my synagogue, my church, my mosque, right? So we need to find those support system. And I have to tell you, our support system gets smaller as we get older. And if you think it's so hard to find friends as we get older, you're not alone. As a matter of fact, there's so many literature out there and people are talking about it. Oh, sorry. How is it that it's so hard to find a friend? And I truly appreciate your comments. Thank you so much.
Well, that's terrific. Oh, Kathy, you have a question? And this
Yeah,
will be
actually, Diane, you have nailed it. I think we need to go have all these 30 and 40 and 50-year-olds go knock on the next door neighbors' doors, because they know those people are there. And if we can get them to start to connect them, maybe then we could do something. I mean, I'm officially retired too, but yet working part-time here to help the COG. And I appreciate the effort that they're keeping me motivated every day to stay in it. And I like Lori hear all of this, and yeah, it's okay to, we figure out ways that we can hide as seniors. So, making sure we can check on people. Yeah, and I think AARP has their challenge grant open until March. So maybe Diane, we can talk and maybe we can come up with a plan to use that grant this year to do something to try and make a change.
Okay, I'd be glad to work with you.
Okay.
Awesome. Great. I just want to mention one thing, because you mentioned that going back and working after retirement. I have to tell you, more and more of our older adults, for a variety of reasons, going back. And study shows that working is associated with sense of self-worth and purpose and contributes to our well-being. And again, thank you so much, everyone. It was an honor.
Hey, well, actually, Maureen, we'll sneak in another question or comment. Maureen, go ahead.
Absolutely. Ms. Maureen is the expert in the field, and I truly appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, actually, I have a lot to say about all of your questions. I've spent the last 12 years dedicating my career to not just studying social isolation and loneliness, but on social connectivity and solutions, how to get more people involved. So that's what I'll be talking about. So I can address a lot of the questions that I so appreciate what Diane said and Catherine said. And there are a lot of activities and events. There's ways to get seniors involved, and we'll talk about that today. It is no longer just an individual issue. It is a county, it is a country, it's the world issue. The World Health Organization has deemed social isolation and loneliness a major component to people's overall well-being if you are not socially connected. So I don't know, is it time to start, Ronson? I just jumped in with that question, but
thank you.
Catherine, do you want to say anything first? Or
if I may just say goodbye, I have another assignment. Again, thank you so much. And I look forward to coming back and presenting on other topics that we have. Again, Ms. Hetzer, thank you so much for inviting me, and all of you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
care.
Doctor.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
That's terrific. Thank you again for everyone for all those questions and comments. Maureen, just sit tight for a second. We have another presenter that I wanted to introduce, John Kander of Mends Minds. He's the executive director. And we had a presentation a few months ago also on music. And so this is another kind of spin on that. So John, take it away.
All right, thank you very much. Keep your fingers crossed that I can screen share. Do you have to give me the capability of doing that?
No, you should be able to do it.
Okay.
You see the screen share on the bottom left?
I do.
Yeah.
And share. There we go.
Great, perfect.
Seeing that? Are you seeing the slide?
Yes.
All right, great. Let's hope the audio comes through, because I have some really kind of very sweet short videos to show. It's wonderful to present this morning after the presentation you just saw, because we're kind of the flip side of that. We're the antidote of that in many ways. And that's why Music Mends Minds was founded. It's a very simple phrase I use to get everybody to understand exactly what's going on here. And that is, at a certain time in our lives, many of us may not know who we're married to, may not know where we live, but we can still sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Now, if you think about that, it's not an anecdote, that's science, because that's how our brain is working. So I'm going to talk a little bit about where we came from, what we do, why we do what we do, and how we can work with you. So let's see if we can get the very first video going. Carol Rosenstein is the founder of Music Mends Minds. Her husband had Parkinson's for 11 years, and his meds stopped working. So that's dopamine, as you probably all know. And she found that when she got him to the piano, because he loved playing the piano, then in 5 minutes he was perking up and he was almost his old self, because he was getting his dopamine naturally through his enjoyment of playing the music. So this is what she did. Just like any other loving wife, she started a band.
Some 15 years ago, my darling husband, Owen, was given an early Parkinson diagnosis.
We hear okay?
Bringing the music into our lives and into the lives of others helped to turn darkness into day. Music Mends Minds is a global nonprofit serving seniors who have neurodegenerative issues using a new language called music. To play a musical instrument is like a full body workout for the brain. We had over 20 bands pre-pandemic. People who were having difficulty speaking suddenly were speaking because they had been singing seconds before. It was phenomenal. COVID closed all of those opportunities down. It was a very dark hour. And the music therapist said to me, Carol, there's something called Zoom. Good morning, today is such a special day. And what a gift, bringing joy right into our homes in isolation. It just does something in your brain. And Sam remembers enormous amount of music. And it brings you back to a happier time, of course. Beautiful. With more people getting vaccinated, we're starting to see bands ignite again. There's nothing like being together and hearing the voices in person. It's exhilarating, more so now than ever. We all need each other together. It's about the music. It's about the magic of music. It's about the medicine that music is. We are on to something great.
Okay, we have groups, musical groups of all kinds. We have sing-alongs, like you saw. We have full bands, like the Full Dimension. We even have a jazz band called the Jazzanovas in Studio City, and they play concerts. And we just finished a holiday concert for the Fifth Dementia Band. We also have drum circles. I wonder if most of you are probably familiar with drum circles. And it's all about the rhythm and the communication and rhythm of some people that can't even speak anymore. They can socialize, they get the joy of it, they get the participation about like being in groups, and it works wonders. It works wonders. We even have a group called the South Bay Songsters that meets at Anderson Park Senior Center in Redondo Beach on the 2nd and the 4th Thursdays of every month. We have about 12 bands going in the Los Angeles area, and we're about to explode and have a lot of others. We have several nationally, and we're in 8 different countries because we have a really lovely relationship with Rotary International that sponsors these groups. Now, what is happening in your brain when you hear the music? Let's talk about that. I want to introduce Rudy Tanzi. He's a professor at Harvard Medical School and Mass General. He's the man who discovered the Alzheimer's gene, and we're grateful that he's on our board of advisors. He is also the keyboardist for Aerosmith sometimes, so go figure that.
I like to think about music as the back door to the parts of the brain that are affected in Alzheimer's disease. So you have these parts of the brain that involve a short-term memory are intimately linked to the parts of the brain where you have music memory. But what's amazing is that as this disease spreads through the brain, the music memory parts of the brain are remarkably spared. They're not vulnerable. I like to say music's the gift that keeps on giving because that part of the brain stays. And the best part is that that part of the brain where music memory is stimulates the nerve cells in the parts of the brain that are affected by Alzheimer's. So it's a backdoor way to stimulate these parts of the brain that are being kind of silenced by Alzheimer's disease. So the music is now physically localized, the music memory is physically localized near that part of the brain, but there's also emotional memory. And so you combine those things, music, emotional recognition, and then you're stimulating that part of the brain needed for short-term memory. So, hearing that music can not only calm the patient down during times where they're frustrated or agitated in the house, but it also can start to stimulate short-term memory again. The other thing about music is it alleviates stress. And a lot of stress in the brain leads to the production of a toxic chemical called cortisol, which kills neurons. What you're doing there with Music Mends Minds, this is where the revolution, that's the center of the revolution.
So you can imagine it's not just for seniors. It's not just prescriptive for people who are starting to lose their marbles. It's preventative because you can build up this capacity to help fight off. You can build your cognitive reserve by fighting off the effects of these diseases when they come. Now, there are over 6.5 million Alzheimer's patients in the United States. There's a new dementia diagnosis every 3 seconds. 40 million of us in our generation are going to have to deal with things like this. 1/3 of people 80 and over, if they don't have cognitive issues right now, they're going to. This is a very big deal. And music is cheap. It has no bad side effects. It provides the joy and the socialization along with it. And it affects caregivers and families and loved ones at the same time. So when I was introduced to this, my wife was a psychologist. She's working with Alzheimer's families. She brought one of her patients to the 5th Dementia Band rehearsal. She called me and said, I don't know where you are in town. You must come and see this. It'll blow your mind. She knew me. I'm very lucky and very proud to come from a musical family. I have the attitude and a small amount of taste, but I do not have the talent. My uncle's the Broadway composer from Kander and Ebb. I'm named after him. So you grew up, you've been listening to cabaret in Chicago for most of your lives. A little song called New York, New York, which performed in public for the very first time at my wedding. And this was a gift to me. The second thing on my mind when I saw this was, this is public health. This is not just for West Side people who are smart enough to get together and enjoy each other and have the time and have the money to do it. This has to go all over the world. This has to go to all of the diverse and underserved parts of our city, because we can provide for very little money group experiences for people that have a medical effect. on them. So let's look at what that medical effect might be.
And we first discovered this, he went into a very depressive state. We had friends that we knew for 40 years and you wouldn't even talk to them. And someone told us about music, Mends Minds. So I took him. The minute we walked into that place, there was a group singing. They were called the Fifth Dementia.
What a great name.
And we walked up and he's just walking down the hall, started singing immediately. And it was like a transformation that blew me away because I didn't know he could remember any lyrics. I didn't know what he could remember any songs. And the minute you gave him a mic, that was it.
Yeah.
What makes you happy? Does singing make you happy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
You love it, huh?
When you came home, was there any change?
What changed was his personality. You could see this light glowing in him, where it was like a pride kind of thing. When I see him come out and sing a song and be back to Billy that I knew, it's like a gift from heaven.
Fly me to the moon, let me pray among the stars. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Oh boy, yeah.
So you can see how it affects everybody around you. So it lowers the chaos in a house. There are less accidents. There are less heavy medication issues. You're not calling the EMTs. You're not going to the emergency room. Voila, your community is saving tons of money in the public health realm because you're better and taking care of yourself better. That's another thing that makes it public health. So we have sing-alongs, we have bands, we have drum circles. Drum circles about rhythm. Rhythm helps it. Here's a little bit of a look at what rhythm therapy can do for people with Parkinson's.
Before I was involved with MMM, I was depressed because I had lost my voice to Parkinson's and had given up on ever socializing again. Music speaks to my heart in a way no other medium does. It transports me to a better place no matter what mood I am in.
Hello, my name is Laura Fonseca. I am a board certified music therapist. I work for a great organization called Melly Music that partners with Music Mends Minds to bring this incredible programming. So can you just give me like a little summary of how your morning was, like what you ate for breakfast, let's say?
I got up early, went downstairs, and I had coffee. My they be in that way. That's usually and Beethoven, yeah, serious. I like classical music in the morning. I like my coffee. I like a piece of quiet. That's my morning. Yeah.
Thank you. So now we're gonna do a little rhythmic. It's called rhythmic priming. So basically, our brain naturally kind of syncs to rhythm. So a lot of people, like if you start clapping a beat by like the second, sometimes second for a musician, but most people like third or fourth beat, they can like join into the pattern. They don't have to, yeah, exactly. They can get into the pattern. So what I'm going to do first is just have you listen to some tapping. The point is that I'm wanting you to just kind of listen in and focus in on the rhythm. And then if you focus in, I'll let you know when you can join in tapping. Okay. So first we're going to prime your brain to kind of get acclimated to the tempo. Yeah. And then it's from there. So, yeah. So the first thing I want you to do is just kind of try to sync your breath to that. All right, so now I might add one more thing. I want you to tell me again what you had for breakfast, but keep the tapping.
I had the fish and rice, sticky rice, and the cat was on the table, and the music was playing, and and Beethoven was on the stereo, and I was having a good time.
That always makes me smile, because in drum circles, you're not aware you're getting therapy. You think you're having fun, and that's what people are doing. Sorry for the blank screen, by the way. We have about, as I said, about 12. I think 4 of them are drum circles around town. We're at adult day centers and memory care centers, of course, and we're at other public places where people come just for activities. We are right now starting an arrangement with the LA County Department of Aging and Disability to put new groups in all of their senior centers around. And we have a background study with the USC and UCLA going on to prove the efficacy of this, because we have 2 rules. The first one is we give the music away for free. We never charge anybody, any seniors, for coming to these groups. The second rule is that we pay our practitioners, we pay our drum facilitators, and we pay our musicians and band leaders and sing-along leaders, because we want the medical establishment and the insurance establishment to realize that they are just as valuable as, let's say, physical therapists, and they deserve to be reimbursed for. When doctors and neurologists say, boy, you should go hear music, you should play music, be involved in a drum circle, and go to your senior center, or have private music therapy, which is a big thing, it should be reimbursable. We know there's a hospital study that says if you have music therapy in a hospital for patients while they're there, and once they go home, they are much less likely to return to the hospital so quickly. And hospitals are judged on their readmission rates. So if you bring down the readmission rate, the hospitals are saving money, and your community is saving money reimbursing the hospitals. So again, here's music as a public health issue. So I'm going to show you an example of a drum circle and a sing-along. This is really cool one. We have both at the Annenberg Gen Space in Koreatown. Now, it's a senior center for Koreatown, but it's run by the Annenberg Foundation, so it's a real nice one. So this is what this looks like. Whoops, I got the wrong one. Sorry about that. Jumped ahead.
Is swimming. So really feel the rib cage, everything expanding as you're moving around, okay? And right.
So the leader of that sing-along, his name is Chris Law. He's from Hong Kong, and he's a counter tenor, which means he sings higher than a soprano. And he's fascinating, and they love him. One of the things we pride ourselves on is finding really interesting, wonderful people to lead these groups. the man who leads a group in Echo Park in historic Filipino town, and as well as in Beverly Hills, at the Beverly Hills Troublemakers, is a great old rocker named Steve Weinglass, who used to be the music director for Bill Haley and the Comets and the Shirelles back in the 60s. So when the song came out, the Shirelles had, that was #1, that Carole King wrote, called Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow, Steve was the one that arranged it. So he's leading our groups, and he helps prepare our group leaders to lead and make it a lot of fun. And so this is what it looks like at the Beverly Hills Troublemakers. I'm sorry the video is playing a little jerky. It doesn't usually. It must be that I'm overtaxing my computer with so much going on at the same time. So I am sorry.
Hey, John. Hey, just do a quick time check. I just want to save some time for some questions too.
Sure. Okay. Our signature band is the Fifth Dementia. Also, I'll skip that little video. It's a performing group of real musicians. Well, no, I do want to play that because it's important. There's a man that you're going to see in here with the white hair and a trombone. He was for decades a fire chief in Los Angeles County. He was head of all the lifeguards on the side. So he was a pretty dynamic guy. Well, 3 years ago, he got Alzheimer's. His other love was music, but the band he used to play in kicked him out, said you can't hack it anymore. His caregiver brought him to us, and we said, bring your trombone. They said, no, you don't want to. The caregiver has to speak for him. He's a phasic. He doesn't really speak. In 3 weeks, he's playing a solo. Yes. This is John the trombonist here, featured in the Fifth Dementia Band. All right, that was performed. We'll skip that part to get to the last one. You can see that there's a physical, a mental, and an emotional aspect to this, not just for the seniors that come, but for everybody around them. And we're about to explode across Los Angeles. We're about to explode across the nation. We're very connected to the National Institute of Health, a wonderful thing called the Sound Health Network at UC San Francisco. So tied into the research And this is sort of taking the nation by storm. We would love to come to your senior centers and do groups weekly, bi-monthly, once a month, move around. We'll find the right music leaders, and you will be giving the people in your community something really to rally around. Now, this is Final Emotional Response. We had a wonderful documentary reality show called Making Good. They did an episode on us last summer. And the idea of the show is a guy who looks around for great nonprofits to roll up his sleeves and join and learn something and contribute and volunteer. And he found us. It was their 50th episode. It was their most emotional episode. And this really wraps up what the feeling and the meaning of Music Mends Minds is. And then it's questions, just a few minutes.
I've learned that Music Mends Minds is more than just playing some songs and shaking a tambourine and shaking a shaker. Music Mends Minds is also waking up those stars in our head, waking up our hearts so that we all feel connected again. So I wrote this song for Music Mends Minds and for all the caretakers that are here today. I thought you were gone and the music had died. I needed one more song to remember you by. When I was lost in my deepest despair, your voice sang through and I knew you were there. With the tap of your foot and the tug of your breath, the song of our love was alive again. So sing me that song, I remember the tune. I'll sing along because I love you. Sing me the song of our love so the stars up above keep on shining. Just sing me the song in your heart and the music will start to spark the love in our hearts. Do, 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 do. The love in our hearts. The love in our hearts. Good night.
So thank you very much for listening. The last thing I want to say is something that's touched me deeply. You all know who Jamie Raskin is, the congressman from Maryland, who was one of the Trump impeachment managers. He lost his son to suicide. Then he got cancer. And he's still out there swinging. He's still incredible. And he said his dad used to tell him, if you look around and you don't see any hope, maybe you're the hope. So that's what I think you who manage senior centers, work with your city's most vulnerable people have. It's a joy for me to now spend the last part of my working life with people like you. So thank you. Any questions? I'd love to talk.
John, how do we get in touch with you? Because I'd love to have something here at the Hawthorne Senior Center.
John, John, at musicmendsminds.org or 310-567-8464.
Thank you.
I'll be happy to hear from anybody and everybody. And we already have a little presence in the South Bay, and we would like to have a lot more. I've talked to the whole city Parks and Recs people last week, very much in bed with the county. We're going to maybe even make county and city work together, and that's Nobel Prize worthy, I think, if you've been in the system for a while. I've been in the system for a little while, and boy, I'll tell you, that's something. It is a pleasure to talk to people like you who really are walking the walk and doing it. Anything else?
Great, John. Any more questions for John? We will be sending out this presentation and the contact information for John. We have a lot of senior centers represented on our working group. Not all of them are here today, unfortunately, but like Carson, Gardena, they're all very active. And so hopefully we can form some partnerships.
Well, I would love to. We are going into the Inglewood Center, and I think that's part of your in your system. I'm hoping that the music leader that I've found is going to be really extraordinary. She's a graduate student in voice and public policy at SC, and she used to be the lead singer in the U.S. Army Band for 8 years. And African-American young woman who is really dynamic. You know, I've seen her audition on America's Got Talent. You know, people who really will light up the room. We know what to look for. That guy who was playing wild piano there at the Troublemakers, that was not our leader. He's a guy that comes and sits in every once in a while, and I move him around like a guest star. His name is David Gadd, and he was a finalist on the Europe's Got Talent, but he's from the country of Georgia. So not a lot of opportunity there, I suppose. So he's here, and he's really helpful. Anything else?
No, I think that's it. Well, thank you again, John, for coming along and presenting us with such a wonderful organization. And yes, we look forward to kind of working with you in the future. Hopefully see you around our senior centers.
It's a pleasure to talk about this. It's a gift to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, well, moving on, last but not least, is Maureen Feldman from the Motion Picture Television Fund. If you do not know, this organization has been around for over 100 years, serving the people of the motion picture, film, and television industry. And I'm very excited to have her. And Maureen, you want to take it away?
Sure. Thanks, everyone. So I know Dr. Hayday had mentioned, I met her a few years ago when she joined a coalition that I had started. MPTF received a AARP Foundation grant in 2016 to specifically study social isolation and loneliness, but to launch programs and to kind of provide pathways for communities to do better and expand programming. And that's one of the things I'll share with you today. I speak at a lot of national conferences and local conferences about exactly what we can do. How can we engage individuals? Yeah, it's really important to get the young people involved. Loneliness impacts everyone. But I will tell you, after the last 12 years of doing this specifically, it's the peer-to-peer connections that mean the most. Intergenerational is great. They'll have a few phone calls. They love to hear from you and talk with you, but they move on. They get married. They, move away. They have children of their own. They have parents of their own. But the real strong relationships really tend to be those peer-to-peer. So I'm going to address that, and I'll just jump right in. My background's in the psychology of communication and in aging. So I teach at Los Angeles Pierce College and UC Davis as well in the professional development departments, helping older adults stay connected and have healthy living behavior, so that the quality of their life it's not just about age, it's about quality. So I'm going to move this. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so again, you already mentioned that we've been around for over 100 years. Not only do we help industry members, which is in Los Angeles County, a huge population, but we are really strong community partners. We do a lot of trainings, outside trainings, and we share our best practices. So one thing that you may not know is the U.S. Surgeon General just released an advisory report specifically naming loneliness being at epidemic levels, and it is now considered one of the determinants of our health. So I'll be happy to share that advisory report with anybody that wants to reach out for it later. And it has a lot to do with the trainings I do. I'm going to show a 2-minute video here just to do an overview on why it's so important that we address this now.
Our nation is experiencing an epidemic of social isolation and loneliness. Those without strong social connections often suffer. Many factors can contribute: retirement, financial instability, disability, bereavement, the loss of a driver's license, Loneliness, boredom, and helplessness are referred to as the three plagues. Many spend hours, even days, without human contact. People without strong social networks have increased chances of high blood pressure, diabetes, dependence on pain medication, depression, anxiety, and dementia. Studies have shown that people who identify as socially isolated and lonely have negative health outcomes equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. If we work together, we can find effective interventions.
So I'm going to talk to you about some of those interventions. Again, I've spent the last 12 years exploring them, doing research with them, and actually launching some. So our goals, again, was to create community awareness, to destigmatize the issues so that people could talk about isolation. When we're talking about the older population, these are people that have lived through depressions and world wars. They're not going to complain about being lonely. Poverty, unhoused veterans, those are important to them, but they will not recognize how detrimental loneliness can be. So we really wanted to bring meaningful opportunities to increase those social events, senior centers being one of the most important of our communities. And then, of course, to expand those resources. We did that we started our own social call program. We started virtual social sessions for family caregivers of people with dementia, because we know family caregivers are also extremely isolated, but their own health is at risk. We started virtual sessions for people with dementia. And then, of course, in 2017, we founded the Los Angeles Social Isolation Impact Coalition, which I'll tell you more about. John Kander, in 2018, we had Mends Minds come to our campus and do a presentation and participate. So you might want to know more about that. In the social call program alone, we've had over 1,000 participants. 53% of them were low income, 22% were family caregivers of people with dementia. 356 were also enrolled in palliative care, which many of you may not know, but at the end of life, people become more isolated and more lonely. They lose friends. A lot of people are isolated because people are moving away, becoming caregivers themselves. And a lot of our older population, if they're lucky enough to live longer, they're often outliving their friends. 43% of the people that participated had no social group at all. So this is just a quick little thing on our social call program.
It's Felice. Hello, Ron, can you hear me? Yeah.
Hi, Marie, it's Tommy.
Hello. Hi, how are you? Oh, Hilda.
I'm Felice Leeds. I'm an MPTF Daily Call Sheet volunteer.
My name is Phil. I'm a volunteer with MPTF.
Hi, my name is Tommy Cooley. I'm a volunteer with Motion Picture Television Fund.
I am a Daily Call Sheet volunteer. I had someone donate an organ for me 6 years ago, it saved my life. So I feel like this is a small thing that I can do.
Hi, it's Frank from the Daily Call Sheet. How are you? I really enjoy doing what I'm doing. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joanne. I just talked to one of my gentlemen that's 95 years old. He's a charming man and he looks forward to the calls. I look forward to talking to him.
My name is Catherine. I'm 74 years old and I'm a volunteer for the Daily Call Sheet. It brightens my day. It brightens their day. I worked for Technicolor for 42 years. I loved it. I couldn't wait to get to work every day. I love this industry. I'm very proud to be part of this industry and part of the Daily Call Sheet.
Hey Siri, call Donna, MPTF.
Calling Donna MPTF.
Donna, how you doing this morning? Good morning. My name is Scott. I'm an MPTF call sheet volunteer, and it's stuff like that that really, really just gets my heart filled with joy.
My name is Carol, and I've been receiving calls from the Daily Call Sheet from Rick and Kathy, and it's just been wonderful and has just made my week. They call a couple of times a week. I'm going to start making calls for the call sheet myself because I have enjoyed receiving them so much that I'd like to kind of return the nice things. And it's just been very, very nice, and I'm very grateful. Thank you, Daily Call Sheet, for having this wonderful program.
Since the beginning of the program, over 25,000 calls have been.
Okay, so actually that's an old slide. Thousands and thousands and thousands of calls have been made. And how do we know it works? Because in 2021, the Journal of American Medical Association did a long study, and they did unequivocally find out that empathy-based oriented telephone call programs can reduce loneliness, depression, and anxiety amongst older adults within as little as 4 weeks. We've conducted our own studies as well, where we've done surveys, random surveys, and you can see over 90% said that their moods were improved by these calls, and they felt more connected as a result of them. They looked forward to them. And then we did one specifically with just our palliative care patients and found that they looked forward to the calls, they enjoyed the conversations, and that they had an improved outlook, an improved sense of well-being, and that their own anxiety and pain decreased. So we know that being socially connected is really important. Our feedback, the qualitative feedback, were statements like, I feel more joyful. This has lifted my spirits. I feel more connected to people and resources. We found that both the recipients and volunteers benefit. If you want to feel better about your life, the best thing to do is to volunteer and do something for someone else. And as you saw, many of our volunteers are older adults themselves, who those two women you saw at the end have both passed away. Both were in the program since 2017, up until the day that they passed away. We became one of their only social networks because they had both outlived their friends and did not have family. So we found that everyone was overwhelmingly wanting to continue. And these are just some of their statements. You know, it's a nice pick-me-up. They're upbeat. I feel better. It gives me something to look forward to. I particularly like this one. It's a verbal hug. I feel more mentally stimulated, which we know is good for our cognitive brain. So based on the success of our program, we created trainings, toolkits, one, how to train agencies on how to launch a social call program, and a volunteer toolkit. It sounds easy. Oh, you just pick up the phone, but really there's got to be supervision. There has to be guidance, protocols, boundaries, how to report, issues, everything from elder abuse to just connecting them with resources. So the training is really important. And I've done over 177 trainings across the nation, especially during COVID. And then we created an online training course as well for volunteers. Multiple LA organizations have joined. So these are just a few of the organizations I've trained: Cedars, Los Angeles LGBTQ Center, Providence, the USC Los Angeles Caregiver Resource Center. Project Angel Food has a very robust and great program. So again, MPTF serves the entertainment industry, but we're very strong community partners. We've also provided virtual groups for people who are memory impaired. These are all homebound individuals who do not drive any longer and do not have social support. We meet weekly. They share their Christmas trees, their pets. This is a 99-year-old woman who used to be a ballerina, was showing us she can still lift her leg and still enjoys body movement. This woman was an artist, and she's showing some of the art. So again, their feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Like, who knew we could make more friends at this age? And then again, we provide trainings and social get-togethers for people with dementia. Their caregivers, specifically so that they can be around other people who are experiencing what they're experiencing. It's an educational opportunity, but it is also a way for them to connect with others and to learn about their own self-care. So just, I'm going to finish with the slides and then share a little bit more information. But what we've learned, we do have intergenerational trainings, and I love working with youth. But it is the older volunteers who have shared life experiences, who've been married or lost jobs or retired, or maybe even experienced losing a loved one, moved. These shared life experiences tend to be the most successful relationships. But you can see that volunteers from all ages can do it. You do not need to drive. You do not need to go anywhere. So it's an opportunity for anyone. This happens to be Dick. Dick Kelsey is 101 years old, and Dick is the volunteer. Dick calls 6 different people each week, once a week, and he says that it helps him because he wakes up every morning knowing that people are counting on him, and that means a lot to him. He still feels as though he has a purpose. So that is, I'm going to stop this share to talk a little bit more about the coalition. I did not put a slide in here, but the coalition is over 60 organizations, LA-based organizations that are service providers. That's how Heyday got introduced to the social isolation concept in the first place. We put on 4 summits where we've invited national and international leaders to come and speak on this issue. So some of you were talking about more has to be done. The County of Los Angeles, through another organization that I'm part of, we did produce PSAs. So we have 2 PSAs, one in Spanish and one in English. I'll be happy to share with you. We're in the process of building up a better resource center. So then when people are feeling isolated and lonely, they have a place to reach out to. But as Diane said, those senior centers play a huge and important role. Family, teaching our loved ones how to stay connected. The most important thing you can do right now is to not get disconnected. Pick up the phone, meet your neighbors, join a senior center, get involved in your church or synagogue or religious organization. Meet people. Yes, intergenerational is great, but again, they're not going to be there that long. So they'll be moving, coming and going. They're very fluid, but there's a lot of other ways you can get involved in your community. And as community partners and people who run senior centers, building more social components into everything that you do. So whether it's bingo or lunch, create opportunities for people to sit with other people, to meet them, have icebreakers where they have to get up and move around and talk to others, or maybe they have to talk to someone for 3 minutes and find some common, thread, a goal. And what you're doing is you're opening up opportunities for people to talk about themselves and to let other people learn about each other. So, I know that we're on limited time. Usually I teach this with UC Davis, and it's an all-day course. And I just taught one for LA County, a half-day training to APS workers and social workers on how to identify and how to get people connected to these resources. So Music Mends Mind is beautiful. It's a wonderful thing for people who are creative that want to do that. Online connection is definitely better than nothing. In person is lovely, but we're dealing with people, especially the most vulnerable, who have disabilities. Maybe they don't like the way they look anymore, or have the medical issues. They're attached to oxygen, or their homes are not, they don't feel proud anymore to show that. So again, online, telephone, connecting in one way or another is a beautiful way to just dip their toe in. And then it's up to us to train our volunteers, to train our staffs to engage any senior that calls or reaches out socially. Make them feel comfortable, make them enjoy that call and that connection. So they'll call back or they'll accept a call from you. But as a community, we have more seniors retiring, and it will continue until 2030 than ever before in history. Many of those people do not have sufficient social support, and many don't have enough economic support. So there's going to be an increase in homelessness or people not being able to pay their medical bills. In fact, many people are just 1 or 2 events away from being unhoused. So as a community, if you have strong community and connection, you're less likely to fall victim to that. So staying connected, learning, making friends, provide more volunteer opportunities for older adults. Do not just look at them as recipients who need help, but how do we engage them? Give them projects, ask them to, participate. They can make phone calls, they can sign people in, but create fun and engaging social events that they can also contribute to. So these are just, minor. I know we're running out of time. So I'm happy to stay on the phone. If we do trainings, launching a social call. I'm actually working with Tarzana Providence right now to launch a big community outreach with their community senior programs. So there are ways you can just dip your toe in without having to spend a lot of money and a lot of time. There's a way to leverage volunteers, and there's a way to create programs that will have a legacy effect for years to come. We are not inventing the wheel. We're basically training people to do what we've known for centuries, which is to look out after each other. But LA, and we're a big state, big county, big city, and we often lose sight of that. We live in our cars until we retire. And then we don't know our neighbors because our social life was based around work, or like the woman that was mentioned before, she can't go to lunch anymore because, she doesn't want to let them know she can't afford it. And she's got too much pride to have anyone pay for her. There are other ways. So again, how can we as a community work together to create avenues and pathways for our older, most vulnerable adults to stay engaged with us, to participate and feel valued, and at the same time have a sense of community? And that's what I'm all about. So I'll be happy to take any questions that you might have and go from there.
Thank you, Maureen. You gave a lot of great suggestions on how we can, better engage with the senior population. But I was just wondering, like, as a group, is there any suggestions for us, like in terms of like a project or how we can maybe even maybe partner with MPTF to kind of tackle on this issue further?
Yeah, I would suggest, first of all, I have to commend you for having this meeting and taking this issue on. That's the first step. The first step is recognizing that it's a growing issue. It's not going away. It doesn't matter how much money you throw at it. There's always going to be older adults who are socially disconnected, retiring, that are going to need your services. So I think recognizing that you want to make it a priority. One of the things it does do as well is it leads people to often underutilized services. So Meals on Wheels, mental health, transportation services that are often not used at the capacity because people don't know how to do it. Starting a program, an outreach program, can help increase, use of some of those. And as you know, the more it's used, the more grant funding, and the more you'll get in the budget for it. If it's underused, they'll take money away. So, I like the idea of starting a social call program because it's a very low cost, high touch way to reach people. If the calls are coming from a validated, community source, people will trust it. We often, when there's a local scam or an email scam or a phone scam going on, we'll actually include that in our calls to warn them, hey, don't listen to this. So in a way, it's preventative. So that's the first thing I would do, Ronson, is to maybe have a separate meeting and talk about having a training. So you can do it where one city does it, or you can do one where city leaders from multiple cities come together to learn how to do it with the guidance. Our trainings, again, we've done them all over the country to great success, where if the heart and the will is there, the way is easily found.
It's great. And I noticed that LA Works was on one of your slides. They're actually great friends of mine. I think Natana was actually on one of the pictures.
Yes.
Did they, I know they were heavily involved during the pandemic. Did they use your call list to do their program, or how did that work?
So it's what's interesting. I had trained them in 2019, and around the holidays of 2019, they were doing kind of like a pilot program for holidays to reach out, and they connected with LA County to call some individuals through LA County who had been identified as socially isolated. So they started with that group, and then when the pandemic hit, they worked with both us and LA County to make outgoing calls. I think, these things cost a little bit of time because it takes somebody to oversee their volunteer force and to recruit participants. So I'm not sure if they went ahead after COVID. I think they carried it through COVID. I don't know if they've expanded it. And that's generally due to funding. But yes, LA Works is a great. LA Works, for those of you who don't know, it's the RSVP program, Retired Volunteer Senior Program. So opportunities for seniors to volunteer.
Great. Any other questions for Maureen? Okay, well, thank you so much, Maureen, John, again, for the presentation. I think as a group, we have a lot to talk about, and it sounds like there's a lot of opportunities for us to get involved. So I'm very excited about this year and maybe what we can accomplish going forward. Oh, Diane.
I just want to tell Maureen that I will volunteer. Absolutely.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I'm going to put my my email in the chat. I would love that. And, again, when I do these things, people go, what can I do? I go, the first thing you can do is today, call your friend, call a neighbor, call your kids, call your parents, whoever, make a call and make that part of you think you're reaching out and doing something for them. And 99% of the time it's for you. And get used to being social, get used to being the solution. Everybody wants to know, what's the solution? You are the solution. We're the solution. We have to pick up the phone. We have to call, reach out. You see someone eating alone, you sit down with them. Whatever that is for you, do it 3 times more than you're doing it now. Be the model. And
well, I'm thankful for a job. I'm working 7.5 hours every day. That keeps me busy because my husband went to heaven in April of last year. One of my neighbors, 3 houses down, her husband went probably around February of last year. Then another neighbor across the street and down the street, her husband left about 5 months ago. I'm going to visit her today. I mean, we were never been real good friends, but we did work at the phone company together. I'm going to go visit her today. This meeting has been great.
I'm glad. And I urge you to, our coalition, when COVID started, we stopped meeting in person. But since we've had at least twice a year, we have major presentations. We had Senator Linda Sanchez join us to talk about what they're doing in the Senate on caregiver support, paid family leave for people who are caring for an older adult. We've had Paul Can, the co-founder of the Campaign to End Loneliness, come and speak to us. We do kind of like a lunch and learn. They're all virtual. And our goal is to constantly provide resources and ideas for people that want to include programming and research around this issue into their organizations, whatever that is. Some organizations started screening. Some organizations started making suggestions on how people could stay socially connected. Other organizations started intergenerational programs, while others engaged older volunteers. So it's really, there's so many little points of intersection. It just depends on if you're thinking about it or not. So everything you do, if you say, how can we include social connection in this? I don't even like to use the word social isolation and loneliness because no one wants to be part of a loneliness club. But if I say, hey, Diane, come join us, we're all connecting, as opposed to saying, hey, Diane, we notice you're alone. Would you like to join us? No, nobody wants that. So if you think about social connection, how can you let your Meals on Wheels drivers stay a little longer and chit chat? How can you create, icebreakers that create social connections at, senior center events? How can you have bring a friend at a senior center, like bring someone who has never been here, whatever that is for you and your organization. Make it part of everything you do, and you'll be surprised. A couple years down the road, MPTF adopted this in 2016. By 2019, social connection and dealing with social isolation was a major part of our mission statement. Everything we do, how do we include them? How do we include everybody? So it's not really hard, and it's not rocket science. It's just consistency. And obviously, you don't want to just give strangers a whole bunch of phone numbers. There are ways to do it. There are secure call centers. There's a lot to do. But
well, I personally miss the COG meeting together, the meetings we used to go to in person. And I hope that we haven't moved into a world because of COVID that everything's going to be Zoom from now on, but Zoom is a great thing. It's a great tool for people who can't get out, but getting together and seeing each other, I think that was great. I miss it. I don't have a chance to be lonely because I'm doing too much. I'm too busy, but I know that even the seniors that come here, some of them, they don't have anybody.
No, and they don't have anything like you do that makes them feel valued. And it only takes one retirement or one health event, one broken hip, and boom, they're like, oh my God, my life stops. So I agree, in person is always best, but we're dealing with a lot of vulnerable people who, like we said, can't be in person. They don't drive. No one will pick them up. They don't have the resources to get there. So if we can, again, an online get together, even like this, it's not so hard. And there are ways to make it fun and engaging. So it's like a splattering of all of that. We have to find a way to make it less cumbersome and just second nature to all of us. Like, we have our online group. We have some people who will never come in person. One thing we learned is our family caregivers of people with dementia, 100% of them said they would not participate if it was in person, because they don't have the time to drive there, to park, to get in, to sit in a meeting for an hour, and then to drive up. They have no one to watch their person. So, and if they did have an hour, they would probably take a shower or do the grocery shopping or, maybe go to a gym. So they said the fact that this is so easy to I just need to show up. I put a movie on for my loved one, or I give them dinner, and then they steal that hour away from themselves. So that was something we learned, that, hey, we've got to address the family caregivers of people with dementia differently than other people. So yeah, there's a solution really out there for everything if there's a will to create that connection for the people you serve.
Well, I love your organization. I love the music organization. I'm going to try to get them here as soon as possible for the seniors. And we haven't even built up to what we were having over 100 people here before COVID. Not everyone came to eat, because we take seniors 50 years and older. You have to be 60, of course, to eat with the program. But we're playing pool in the computer room, in the sewing room, and all, joining the exercise programs and the trips that we take and the dances that we have. So we haven't built back up to that. I think they're feeding about 40 seniors that come in now, and they do some delivery, of course. But I want to get that music program in here, definitely, and I'm going to join and make some calls. I'm going to get my family involved too, making calls.
I love it. Well, you contact me, and if you are interested in starting a program like this for your community, really, it's just a few people that are saying, hey, I'm willing to make this a priority and take this on. It is not a huge expense. It's not even a huge time commitment. It's just really a methodical approach, so that you're being thoughtful and HIPAA compliant, and that you're being safe and you're supporting your volunteers and the people that you reach out to. So for example, all those people that went to the senior center, some of them will come back. Many of them will never come back because of health issues and COVID scares, or they're immunocompromised, so they're not going out. So it's for those people who won't be coming back. How do you reach them, and how do you keep them engaged safely? So I'm happy to, have another meeting or talk to you about that. Ronson and Diane, I don't know who does that, but
yeah,
It's an
Yeah.
easy way to get something started and to provide other, older adults an opportunity to volunteer when they probably thought they were past their prime for that.
Great. Yeah. I mean, thanks, Diana, for your participation. And yeah, let's talk offline about how we can maybe work together to bring some of these programs into our communities. Well, thanks again, Maureen. We're actually out of time, so just going to move on. But yeah, thank you. Thank you again for presenting.
My pleasure. I look forward to hearing from you. My email is in the chat, and I think Kathy has all my contact information as well. Thank you, Kathy, and thank you all for taking this issue on. I really appreciate that you care about this.
Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you. Hi, Harriet.
So just moving on, let's go to legislative updates. Janet?
Well, I do have something interesting to talk about. So Congressman Liu has co-sponsored HR 4583, and it's called the Social Security Act 2100. It's a little bit of a heavy lift with the current 118th Congress, but, it had to get introduced. And so, he'll be pushing with the person who introduced it for this to go through. But most importantly, it'll be set up, even if we have luck, with a friendlier Congress in the 119th. Just very briefly, it will save Social Security. It will make it safe to continue for years to come. And it will give boost increases in how much money Social Security gives. It'll improve benefits for widows and widowers, who lose their whole spouse's check. And it will make the adjustment for inflation a true adjustment as compared to the crazy way it's done right now. So those are just a few of the things I wanted people to know about. It will need support. HR 4583, the Social Security Act 2100. It's definitely, the congressman felt, is definitely worth fighting for. So that's the most important update. And thanks so much for a wonderful presentation today.
Great. Okay, I think that's the only legislator we have on. Jackie, do you want to provide some updates from the COG?
Yes. First of all, I think this was a great meeting. I really enjoyed it very, very much. And I think we have to talk about how we can actually make this, a project for the COG and where we fit in and how we can help and what you guys need at your cities for us to be doing. But, and then the other thing I want to say before I get to my announcements is, Diane mentioned meeting in person. We can meet in person. We can have hybrid meetings. We can start off. If that's something you want, let Ronson know, and Kathy know, so that what's happened is we will set up a hybrid meeting and then nobody comes and we buy refreshments and all that. So it's really, we really need you to let us know that you'll be there, but we're more than happy to do that, and we can do it at our office. So let us know. The announcement that I have to make is our General Assembly. Our General Assembly is March 28th. And it's going to be on artificial intelligence, friend or foe of the South Bay. I don't know if any of you heard today, but apparently there's a deep fake going on in New Hampshire right now, telling people not to go out and vote. And so these are hopefully the kind of things that we're going to be discussing. We have an incredible keynote speaker who is Congressman Ted Lieu. And he's going to be talking about cybersecurity and the things that we need to be watching out for, because it's here and obviously it's out there today. We have a person flying in from Arizona who is telling us how he uses artificial intelligence in his work in the city of in Maricopa County, Arizona. And we have several other speakers, including one that's going to talk about the ethics of AI. Where do we keep our head on straight when we have this new technology? We want to have a very robust exhibit hall so that you can go into the exhibit hall and talk to companies directly about what they're doing and see how they make it work. It's free for those of you that have never been to a General Assembly. It's from 9 to 3 on March 28th. That's a Thursday. It is free, and the reason it's free is that we ask for sponsorships. And if sponsors get to have an exhibit at a certain level, and so if you know of anybody that would be interested in sponsoring, we're doing that right now, as well as finalizing our program. We hope you'll all write it down, save the date, and plan to attend. And that's really the most important thing. That is there anything else I should be saying, Ronson, that we're
Where's
doing?
it at?
Oh, it's at the Carson Community Center. Thank you for asking. Yeah, it's there, and we have like a continental breakfast, and we have lunch. Even though it's free, we must have your RSVP because we pay for lunch. And so it's really important that we get a good count and we have food for all of you, but that we don't overpay. So we're looking forward to seeing you all there. I think that's about it from us. Ronson, do you have anything else to add?
No, just homeless count is tomorrow in the South Bay. If you haven't volunteered already, we have some cities that may need more volunteers. So go on the lakecountwillyou.org website. And other than that, I think that's it. We're out of time and we're actually over time. So if there's any other updates from anyone else.
Bronson, I just want to say next month, Kathy has been absolutely incredible working with me and the seniors in California 36. And I'm hoping to have some really positive updates to tell you about her good work in connecting seniors to services. So it's very heartwarming to see the updates. So I'll tell you about that next month.
Yeah, Kathy is. Oh, go ahead.
And I was just going to say, please, I would like everybody to let us know if you want to meet in person and how you think we should follow on this meeting today.
Yeah, well, Kathy and I are going to brainstorm on the best way. We also want to update our senior services working group list. And so maybe while we do that, we're going to reach out to every city and to update our list and just make sure we have the right people. And then while we do that, maybe we ask people, for their thoughts and opinions on meeting in person, and also what they want to do in terms of the isolation or social connection project.